welcome, bookies. Y'all entered the bookish lounge again. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. Shoot, get you a pastry, a croissant, pull up a chair, and let's talk about this book, this fine written thriller book by FREIDA McFADDEN. None other than the thriller god herself is what I call her. This book is entitled Ward D. Let me give you a quick summary of the book before we get into our reading reflection questions. We start off with Amy, who is a medical student, and she has to work this overnight shift in a psychiatric ward for a medical school credit. As we all know, FREIDA McFADDEN like to take us back and forth through the characters' lives from their early childhood up until the point of the book. This book kind of follows Amy and her best friend Jade, who is locked up in a psychiatric ward that Amy has to work in through the overnight. Throughout the book, we come to realize that these two had a dynamic relationship. I wouldn't say it was good. I wouldn't say it was bad. That's why I said it was dynamic. But throughout the book, weird things keep happening throughout this overnight shift. And we get to meet some of the interesting patients throughout the book. And they have some distinct characteristics about themselves. Spider-Man Dan, we'll talk about him later. But will this psychological or physiological or psychological, however you want to call it, will the thriller live up to the hype? Again, weird things keep happening throughout this overnight shift. People keep disappearing. We don't know what happened to them. Something is going on in Ward D. I know what's going to happen, but I encourage you to find out what happens in Ward D. Let's get into these reading reflections, or what I like to call reading reflections. I don't want to call them questions. So you over there, what's your first question? Well, Mr. J. Reed, what initially drew you to this book? Was it a recommendation, the author, or was it something else? That, my friend, was Book Talk. Book Talk is the reason that I was initially drawn to this book. I love thrillers. I love thrillers because they're shorter than fantasies. I didn't read this book with the physical copy. I listened to it through the audio. I love listening to a good audio book, as in per one of my other videos, why I like listening to one of my audio books. But TikTok drew me to this book, and I love FREIDA McFADDEN as an author. She has some more books that I have to go and read. And I just feel like with Book Talk, they really do have some great recommendations. A lot of people like to read. So shout out to the Book Talk. So that was number one in our reading reflection. You over there. What's your question? How would you summarize the book's plot or main themes without giving away any spoilers? I did that in the beginning. Listen, man, weird things keep happening in the psychiatric ward. Best friends turn to, what I'm going to just say, frenemies turn to friends, or do they stay frenemies or do they go to enemies? I can't call it for you. You got to read the book and come back and tell me yourself. But that's how I would give up the book in a summary. Wait, who got a question over there in the back? Who got a question? Okay. What were your overall impressions of the book? My overall impressions of the book, I've been in mental health already. I've worked in a psychiatric field. So I understand, what patients go through. I've been in a lock unit where the unit got locked down because certain things was happening. Nothing crazy in this book, but certain things start happening, fights, patient having weapons, patients doing crazy things. Not none that they can help themselves, but I've been in this situation. So that was another reason what drew me to the book as well. It met my expectations because we get to see different people going through different psychiatric things, I would say, or conditions. And it gives you a perspective of, anybody can go through something in their life. You just never know that you can't pick it up early enough to get some help. Were there any specific characters that stood out to you? I would say it's definitely a couple of characters that stuck out to me. When you read this book, and I believe you're going to read this book, when you get into Spider Dan, he's going throughout the night saying that somebody, I could say his name, Damian Sawyer, is going to get loose and he's going to kill me. And Amy, who is this nurse, she's kind of like, yo, what's wrong with you? Like, who's going to kill you? She doesn't really know. And throughout the night and throughout her character, we realize she's very timid. She can't really handle the pressure of working in a psych ward, especially when it's Ward D. And Spider Dan kind of scares her. The same thing with Miss Mary, who has the thread and needles. They're not real needles. They gave her some plastic joints to make her go through and out. So she's not going to harm her. Then we have, obviously, her friend Jade. Jade is a character that you love to hate. She is what I call a bitch. Sorry, can't really say it any other way. She's really a bitch. But Spider Dan, back to Spider Dan. When let me say this, mental health patients, they might have a mental condition, but they're not stupid. They really understand, but they go a different route when they're trying to explain certain things. And when Spider Dan was talking and he was telling her, he was giving her context clues. He just didn't really know how to project it onto her. And in her thinking that he was crazy, she kind of was like, yeah, whatever, throughout the night. But we come to find out that he really is a spider at the end of the film, at the end of the book. The next character that stood out to me was Will Schoenfeld. Throughout the book, we find out that, I won't tell you. Throughout the book, we find out that Will isn't who he said he was. And then we put it in reverse. He wasn't who they said he was. And now you got to read it. But Will is a definitely interesting character because he is the epitome of I'll do anything to be known, is what I got from him. I'll do anything to be known. I'm willing to go the distance to figure this out because I need the inside scoop. And when you read the book, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So those are the couple of characters that stood out to me. Did the author's writing style resonate with you? Yes, it did. And the reason I just told you a couple of questions before that, working in a mental hospital, this definitely, the writing style resonate with me because I've seen patients who think that they're somebody else or that thinks that things are happening around them and they're really not. So how can this contribute to the experience in your book? I just told you. Being in mental health helped me get through this book. And reading it from a perspective of I've been in these situations. I know how to handle these situations. Whether you have to restrain a patient, whether you have to give what we call the booty juice. And a quick thing, the booty juice is to get them to calm down. Stick it right here. It don't really go on their arm. But if they're struggling, flip them, put them on the side. Right in the cheeks. I'm sorry, that's the way it happens. And then they're Benadryl. They're gone. Sleep. Zzz, for the night. Trust me, it works. Almost got stuck myself. But that's how this helped me get through the book. And that's how this helped me, like, with the experience and the contribution to the book. See, FREIDA be knowing. She be writing these books. I think she writing these books for me and me personally. But that's a different story. What aspects of the books did you enjoy the most? The aspects I enjoyed was that you never knew who the real villain was. And then you have to ask the real person to stand up. If you read this book, you know who I'm talking about, Dr. Beck. You know who I'm talking about. So I would say I enjoyed the dynamics in the book during this overnight shift. Like this happening, and you figure like, why they just can't go out the door? See, that's why you got to read the book. Somebody takes a piss on something. It just messes everything up. But you're like, well, why this happened and why that happened and why this happened? Why don't they just leave? It's easier said than done. If you've been on a lock unit before, you know what I'm talking about. Were there any aspects that you found lacking or didn't enjoy? I didn't enjoy the way she made the character so scary. That's the only thing. And I've seen, but to her credit, I've seen people come on a unit that I've worked on 2 South, and they're like 30 minutes into it, a patient comes out butt naked and runs towards them, and they out the door. Shoom, they gone. You don't see them for the rest of the day. You're like, yo, the shift started at 7 o'clock. It's 7:45 and you gone? You quit? It happens, man. Some people just can't handle it. But I kind of wish she would have made her a little bit tougher She made her very timid, and that kind of was like, come on, man. You could have made her a little bit more tougher, but that was really the only things that I felt was lacking. And I felt like we could have got more character development throughout the book. We didn't really, we got some from Cameron. We got some from Jade. We found out more about Jade's life than we did about the main character, Amy's life, and why Jade was the way she was. So I felt like, but I understand thrillers is kind of like you want to keep going. You don't really want to give a backstory to it, but it would have been some better. The book would have been a little bit better if she would have went into the background of the characters. How did the book make you feel while reading it? I felt like I was on the edge of my seat. Like I knew what was going to happen. Let me not say that. I didn't know what was going to happen initially. And the twist, FREIDA, you are the best at the twist. I did not know at the end what was going to happen because there's always like a twist to the twist to the twist. But I felt, let me see. I would say I felt suspense when I was reading the book because she would break down 4 hours till daylight, 5 hours till daylight. And I knew something was going on. And this place just sounds so creepy. It just sounded like super creepy. And I was like, yo, okay. Then throughout the whole thing, I'm like, well, where's Damon? Where's Damon? Like, I don't know where Mr. Sawyer's at. She never really talked about it, but we knew he was out of his room. And I'm like, wait, as somebody who was a mental health technician, if I see one of the main patients, the big dog, out his room, I'm on him. I don't care what he got. Because either I'm going to die now, I'm going to die later. You know what I'm saying? So I just felt like being in this situation in real life helped me invoke strong emotions while reading the book, especially when it comes down to laying the murder game down flat. And when one person disappears on a locked unit, it ain't that many places you can go to. You really have to look for the patients. That's why it's called 15-minute checks. So I didn't know what was going on in there. I didn't know what she was trying to do. Amy, you got to do better. I know you're a med student. You said it in the book. You don't really want to deal with the mental health side of the medical field. But these were your patients and you had to check on them. So throughout the whole book, my emotions was going around, was like, wait a minute. Where's the 15-minute checks at? We not just going to look for this man. He out the room and y'all just going to allow him to lollygag around and do certain things to certain people? No, we ain't supposed to accept that. I won't accept it. Come on now. You got to do better than that. So that obviously you can see the strong emotions that I'm trying to convey to you guys. I'm just saying, if it was me, I'm beating everybody up on the unit. I'm sorry. At that point, there's no longer life and death. You telling me that people are disappearing on the unit and I could be next? Nah, I'm going to whoop that ass. I'm sorry. It's going to happen like that. I'm not taking no chances. Men or women, knock out, clean, gone. I don't know who like it or who don't. I'm not with physical abuse of women. But listen, have you ever been in a locked unit with somebody with a knife before? That was crazy. What you gonna do? Hey, I can't call it. What audience do you think would enjoy this book the most? I feel like medical students, people in the psychiatric medical field, they'll read this and then they'll go to work and be looking around like, not today, my boy. I'm not with it. I will work you in here. But I think it appeals to all demographics. I don't think that it boils down to just the medical field or anybody that's in the psychiatric field. It would help you, you know what I'm saying, be on your P's and Q's while you're doing these 15-minute checks or going into a patient room. Or anybody that's willing to get into the field, I feel like this could go to any demographic. It don't really have to be a certain reader that it might appeal to. It can really be anybody, for real, teenager, adult. And it gives you a perspective of, don't judge mental health patients by their diagnosis. You know what I'm saying? Like, treat them as an individual, as you would want your family members. If they was in a certain facility locked up, you would want, not locked up, but in a locked unit, you would want them to be treated. So that's all I'll say. Finally, We getting to the end. We only 15 minutes. I could go long if I was to tell you about the book. I could give you a spoiler. Maybe I'll give you a spoiler later. But finally, would you recommend this book to others? Yes, I would. FREIDA McFADDEN is one of the best authors that I've picked up that I've started to read and pick up all her books. Like, not all of them. I think I got to read The Coworker, The Teacher, and The Inmate. And then I think I'm almost caught up. But I would recommend Ward D to anybody. It's a quick read. If you read it out, I think it's about 400 some pages, maybe less. I think it's 7 hours and some change on audiobooks. I definitely would recommend it. It's a thriller. Everybody know it's a suspenseful thriller, you know. And this is a good book you'll get through because you would want to know like all the relationships between Amy and Jade. You would want to know like what happened because Jade is a monster. I will just tell you that. I'll give you a spoiler. If your friend was to drug you and have you seeing things, when you see them, how would you react when you first see them? That's like me giving my brother or a friend of mine dropping something in they drink throughout their whole life. And then I see you got me seeing stuff. Then I see you and it's like, oh, we best friend. No, that's just a spoiler. That's the only spoiler I'll give. But anybody can read this book, man. And I would encourage you. That's the whole thing of my podcast, is to encourage you to read the book. This is the first time that I've been super animated. Pardon me, I'm not just sitting here like, and the book was about, I can't, because this book was really a fun book to read. It was a fun book and it had me on my P's and Q's. And in the ending, FREIDA, FREIDA has one of the best ending abilities for a book that I've seen from at least 10 to 12 authors that I've read thus far. Like 10 to 12, excuse me. I just spit. 10 to 12 authors. Like her endings are like triple entendre. You think it's this way. You think it's this way. But nah, hold on now. Here go Batman. It's right here. Like that's her endings. And I'm like, she's the thriller god for that. I done gave her the title already. Until somebody else, Alyssa Cole is coming. But until somebody else take that title from her, she's the thriller god. But thank you. Thank you to those who are going to read the book or thinking about picking up the book after listening to this podcast. And until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, you are excused from the Bookish Lounge. Clean up all your crumbs and make sure you throw all your pastries and stuff in bags and cups in the trash. Until next time. And look, I'm not against it. If you want to come in here and join me on the Bookish Lounge and let's get it talking. Let's get the talking. All you got to do is just send me a DM on TikTok at J Reed or go to my YouTube page, Bookish Lounge, and drop something in the comments like, yo, let's link. Let's talk about this book. I'm willing to talk about books with anybody. As long as you read the book or you listen to the book, let's talk about it. Differences of opinion. But until the next time, man, the lounge is closed. I'm your host, J Reed. Get out of here.